taxi organisations are currently briefing Parliament's Transport Portfolio Committee on the latest and the way forward. You recall there'd been an impasse on the proposed amount that government was set to give the taxi industry as a result of the effects of COVID-19. That and other issues expected to be on the table. Let's go there live now.
Of them, close to 10%, I suppose, carried essential workers to and from work, and they operated during the very limited hours. And at that stage, initially, they carried 50% of their loading capacity. A little later, they were allowed to carry 70% of their loading capacity. And in a 15-passenger combi, which is a 15 plus 1, these taxis only carried 9 passengers, 10 including the driver. And you can imagine the shortfall that the taxi industry had incurred up until now. To this end, we have continued to engage in a very honest and sincere way the minister and his department. And recently we have placed before the minister, that was after he had publicly informed us of the relief fund, which in our view, of course, very minimalistic. I need to inform you, Slalo, and your committee, that taxis, your 15-passenger taxi, installments rank from 15,000 to 13,000 per month. You can just imagine the shortfall and the arrears during the first 3 months. And we appreciate that payment holiday has now lapsed. And we had approached the minister, presented before him that we feel and think that it is high time now that the loading capacity of our taxis be restored. We had based our argument precisely on the advice and counsel, not only of the World Health Organization, but of our own National Corona Command Council. I need to remind you, Slalo, that putting on a mask specifically was intended for situations where social distancing is impossible, according to the World Health Organization. That was the intended purpose of us wearing masks, in order to mitigate in circumstances where social distancing is impossible. This messaging was very clear for all of us to understand, and it is still resonating with everybody. Of course, though there are those who still do not honor this message. And I need to indicate that the message and the instruction or the regulation is peremptory. Nobody has an option. We all must obey and abide by. And any other regulation and law is as good as it is enforceable. So we pleaded that the loading capacity be restored on those bases. And we posed this question, that there are 2 combis. One is a 15-passenger taxi carrying 70% loading capacity. Another is still a 15-passenger loading capacity vehicle carrying 100% loading capacity. We posed a question: what is the rate of infection in each scenario? Science has not responded to that. Even those who argue against the 100% are unable to provide proof of any scientific opinion on this matter. Of course, we understand the issue around your patient zero in China, who had infected so many people. And we need to understand that patient zero was able precisely because there were no mitigating factors and mitigating protocols and procedures then. That is how this virus had spread. And we also pleaded that the long-distance taxi operation should resume. That is our intra-provincial, inter-provincial, as well as your cross-border. However, we presented this to the minister, and he promised that he was going back to the portfolio, rather to NCCC, to place our prayer. And of course, I need to admit that in all of these, we were in agreement with the minister. He was very sympathetic. And of course, we had a very long period waiting for a pronouncement by NCCC on this matter. Recently, of course, the minister came back to us. He reported that despite our displeasure, one, at the relief fund, government, the treasury, has no funds available to set aside in order to add on to this one. Secondly, he also reported back to us that cross-border operation, opening up of borders, that one was outrightly defeated at NCCC simply because the country would not cope with the influx of foreign citizens with COVID-19 in terms of UN protocols and treaties, because government will have to provide those services for them. So recently we've had meetings, around about 4 of the recent meetings we've held with the minister. The first one recently was on the 17th of June, when he had to come and report back to us on our submissions. And the report that the minister and his department presented was that NCCC found it in its wisdom and resolved that the public transport matter should not be looked in isolation. It must be looked together with other matters on the same day, so that time allocated is not split. Of course, on Monday, again, 29th of June, 2020, we met with the minister, and he reported to us that the DG was at net joints and that the matter and issues we have presented are receiving attention. And the Honorable Minister reported back that he will report back sooner rather than later. Again on Thursday, 2nd of July, we did meet with the minister, and of course, he informed us that during the National Corona Command Council meeting, a letter came up from a college of medicine in South Africa, where the College of Medicines expressed its concerns on the 100% loading capacity. Consequently, a 2-person committee was appointed by NCCC. This 2-person committee was composed of both the Ministers of Transport, Ntatefikile Mbalula, and Dr. Zweli Mkhize, to come and meet the taxi industry and discuss the concerns raised look at the protocols to mitigate the concerns raised. This was done and completed, and finally, on Saturday, the 4th of July, 2020, the NTA National Executive Committee met the ministers, Fikile Mbalula and Dr. Zweli Mkhize, National Department of Transport and National Department of Health, respectively, and their entourage. They were also accompanied by, amongst others, Professor Karim, the COVID-19 Ministerial Advisory Committee. A PowerPoint presentation was made. We engaged the issues raised. The two-person committee was to take the agreement that we had reached, especially the protocols to mitigate the concerns raised by the College of Medicines. So this had gone back to NCCC. The NTA felt after that engagement that it had presented a very compelling argument. We are, as a result, looking forward to a positive response. Upon receipt of your invitation, which we are honoring this evening by being here, I looked at it and studied it. It referred to an impasse. And I looked at my vocabulary, and it says an impasse is a situation in which no progress is possible, especially because of disagreement. I also looked at a word deadlock, which is defined as a situation typically one involving opposing parties, in which no progress can be made. Then I also looked at a word dispute, and the dictionary says that it is an agreement or a disagreement or argument that is to express a disagreement. The NTA takes the following position. Because National Corona Command Council has not pronounced itself on the matter and issues that we have presented before it, we have not made any pronouncement. Consequently, the NTA will pronounce itself after finality has been reached by the National Corona Command Council. We do, however, as lawful citizens, reserve the right to pursue all legal avenues possible in case we feel aggrieved. I want to publicly declare today that at no stage will NTA agitate disobedience. At no stage will NTA promote insurrection and sabotage. At no stage will we take any position and make any pronouncement until the minister has reported back to us on the progress and otherwise of it. I must sincerely and honestly appeal to your good sense of judgment and honesty to help the taxi industry in this matter. Because if we are to be expected to operate at 70%, it is as good as declaring the taxi industry dead and opening up for the highness to come on a feeding frenzy to finish off the dead carcass of the taxi industry. I believe it is not in the interest of South Africa to kill your prime public transport mover, responsible for nearly 70% of the commuting public in the country. A prime public transport mover, which you have since the advent of democracy, not recognized and subsidized. Of course, this situation precedes democracy. We faced a similar situation during the previous apartheid regime, and we have continued as citizens and as patriots to transport the communities in which we live. This is a trade that we have chosen for ourselves, and this is what we have, and this is the only trade that we are prepared to pursue and continue. You can imagine, Slalo, in every trip where the cost is 10 rand, paid to both the subsidized mode and the non-subsidized mode. That trip, in essence, costs 20 rand. Public transport subsidy gives the other 10 rand to the subsidized mode at the expense of the taxi industry. So we have been providing a social service. We have subsidized the majority of citizens in this country. To them and before their eyes, we are a government that provides for their needs. Let me also indicate that our role in this country is creative nation building. I am sure that what I have presented tonight depicts who the National Taxi Alliance is. In spite of all that it is faced with, we are resolute. We are committed in supporting every endeavor and effort to help South Africa get out of the morass it finds itself in. We are committed to this country. We do not come from any other planet but this one. We know of no other country but this one. We know of no parliament and government but this one. And let us preserve the trust that the public has in us as government and as public transport. Let us together preserve the goodwill that the public continues to demonstrate and to show towards us and towards government. And it is no sin for the commuting public in this country to have selected and chosen the public transport mode number one that they feel works for them as the taxi industry. They are supporting the taxi industry with their feet. The percentages of how much we carry are sufficient testimony to that effect. So today, we are pleased to have been invited by not just the portfolio committee, but by men and women who were chosen and called upon by God to rule over a nation. And we as subjects have nowhere to run to other than to come back to you. That is why, unreservedly, we acknowledge and we undertook that we are going to take these steps to come and meet your good selves and present our case. And our struggle continues until such time that the very least of us is free and economically viable. We are not going to relent. And in the final analysis, I have said and continue to insist that considering the health consideration presented by a College of Medicines in South Africa is a very good thing. It is critical. However, there are also economic as well as social interests. So these must be balanced out. So it is our view that a pragmatic approach towards resolving this issue is critical. And it is our appeal today to your good selves. We feel and trust that we have met the people who matter today, people who will support the minister in pleading our case. I must indicate that I am one man who listens with his ears on the ground and with his eyes wide open. I respect people, even those who are younger than I am. I am sure I am twice your age, some of you. But however, because you were chosen by God to lead me, I have got to demonstrate that I support and respect your good offices. Therefore, it is this type of a balance that I wish we would all strike for the good of all of us. So with these few words, let me thank you very much. Initially, I was rather expecting that I will receive a presentation from your good selves. But however, now that I had to take the responsibility of putting before you my submission and our submission to the minister, I am glad to do so. And I cannot, as president of the NTA, on behalf of and for the people, the men and women I lead, pronounce on a decision that has not been made. Otherwise, I would be negotiating in bad faith, which is who I am not. So with these few words, Hlalo, I wish to retreat and hold my beat. Thank you for offering me this opportunity as President of NTA to meet and to share with your good selves these frustrations that are facing us. Thank you so much.
Well said, President. I'm sure I'm part of those who may be younger than you twice, as you have said. And I appreciate the fact that you give respect to the fact that we are elected and we are here. Thank you very much. And thanks for the presentation, detailed as it is. Let me allow, let me just test before I allow honorable members to ask whatever questions, contributions. Are you done on your side, President? Is there no one who wish to add so that tomorrow we are not seen as people who are not democratic?
Thank you, Nkosi Amin. Slalo. The NTA is done and its submission is as presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I now can take hands. Let me hear who wants to contribute on this. Honorable McDonald.
Chris Hunsinger.
Honorable Chris Hunsinger.
Ketama Balaskole.
Usekafikile mfoka Mondise.
Dami Mokena.
Masithokoze Mhlonishwa. Who else?
Nondando Luchungu. Luchungu.
Mamuno Luchungu. Where's Honorable May today? The man who was
Chair, Mr. May is struggling with his sound. As soon as that is sorted out, he'll join the meeting.
Okay, sure. Any taker? Okay, let's
before that, Honorable Ramadwa.
Honorable Ramadwa. All right. Let's take this first round.
The taxi industry, the National Taxi Alliance, are briefing Parliament's Portfolio Committee on the challenges that it's been going through as a result of COVID-19. Key issues, of course, the relief fund, slightly over 1.1 billion rand that government had said it wanted to give the industry. The industry saying, of course, multiple times that it's not happy with that amount that has been given to its industry. Also on the issue of the 70%, 100% loading capacity. You could hear their pleading once again following multiple meetings with the Minister of Transport pertaining to the 70% and 100% loading capacity. Remember that also the taxi industry had decided to go ahead and load at 100% capacity, that against the lockdown regulations, and that's where it still stands at this point after multiple meetings with the Minister of Transport, Fikile Mbalula. This plea is now going to Parliament's Portfolio Committee in trying to galvanize support for the taxi industry to relook at the relief fund itself, and also look at the issue pertaining to the loading capacity that has been for the taxi industry at 70% thus far. But they're moving it back to 100%, saying they were not happy with some of the negotiations that they previously had with the Transport Minister.